What's going on, guys? Welcome on to another video. I'm Matt over at DSR, and today I come out this BMW R1250 GS. I personally own a GSA, so today I'm going to see by the end of this video if I made a mistake by buying the GSA and not the GS. Let's look at some of the stats then for this bike. For this engine, we have got the flat boxer engine, producing 136 brake horsepower with 143 Newton meters of torque. For me, the fun on any bike is the torque. Yeah, it's cool having a 200 brake horsepower machine. Live in the UK, can't be going 150 miles an hour everywhere. So having that torque means every gear low down it just pulls. So let's see if this specific 1250 GS has that fun factor to it. You find a lot of people will say that the GSA range is for your middle-aged old man riding around on his armchair. And if you want to just cruise around and just chill out, 100%. This bike is comfortable, it's easy to ride. Depending if you get the GS or the GSA, you're going to get 200 to 300 miles per tank. But this bike can absolutely keep up with the best. I don't care what you say, you can have some serious fun with this on road. You're going to take it off road for a little bit if you want, and then when you get off at the chippy, your back doesn't hurt, unlike sports bikes. So if you are one of those haters that says this bike is no good for younger people, get yourself on one. You will be pleasantly surprised. There's a reason why the GS and the GSA are both within the top 10 top selling motorcycles in the UK. The first three are mopeds and scooters, and then the fourth and fifth is both the GSA and the GS. There's a reason for it. The GS is going to come in two different main models. You've got the standard GS, that's going to set you back £14,990, or which this one is, you can get the GS TE model. The TE model is going to set you back around 18,500. Most people in the UK will get the TE over the standard every time. The TE just gives you all the little nice extras that you kind of want. You get all the extra goodies, cruise control, quick shifter, heated grip, things like that. It just makes it worth it. Let's have a look at the electronics package on this bike. Throughout this video I will just be talking about the TE model, so because there is quite a bit of difference between the standard and the TE. At the front end we have got LEDs all round, but we've also got adaptive LED and cornering as well, so the little LED headlight moves when you're going around the corners. We've got the GPS bracket ready for different types of GPS. I'd suggest looking into the BMW Nav 6 forums and the comments surrounding that sat nav. Below that we have got a large TFT. We do have connectivity through the BMW Rider app, but it will only give you turn-by-turn navigation. It won't give you full Google Maps overlay. It would be nice to see that, so I didn't have to have the GPS bracket, but hey, maybe in future updates. There is a new BMW 1300 coming out either end of this year or beginning of next, So I'd be interested to see if they've upgraded and updated the TFT screen. There's something like 7 rider modes. You got Eco, Rain, Road, Dynamic, and then you go into Dynamic Pro, Enduro Pro. Once those are unlocked, you go into the settings, and then you can adjust the parameters on the Dynamic Pro and the Enduro Pro. On the right hand side of the handlebar, you've got a mode button. You push that and it will cycle through the different modes. Even though there are 7, you can only have 4 which are set on the TFT screen, so you have to decide which ones you want on there. As mentioned before, we do have quick shifter and cruise control on this bike, something that's definitely needed if you are going to start doing long distance. I've definitely come accustomed to quick shifter nowadays. It just makes life a little bit easier. Oh, nationals! For those that say this bike is slow, 143 newton meters of torque, this thing absolutely pulls you. I've no doubt knowing I could keep up with some people on their little sports bikes who've done their bikes better than mine. We do have keyless start and keyless fuel cap. On the right hand side, just below the screen, we've also got a USB charger point, so if you're sat nav or your phone, you'll be able to charge it while you're going along, no drama. This bike does come with fully electronic suspension, and I think it works really well. You can adjust it on the left hand side of the handlebar. You've got the little suspension button, and you can change the height of it as well, so minimum suspension, maximum suspension, or auto. If when you're at a stationary and you change it, you will notice the ride height actually drop between max and min. So if you are on the shorter side, then dropping this into minimum will help you out. You've also got hill hold control with this bike, so you really need to pull in the front brake quite hard or push the rear brake hard and it will activate it. Something that's nice and handy, especially if you've got a passenger or luggage. Just makes life a little bit easier. If you're at a set of traffic lights and there's a slight incline or decline, and you want to come off the brakes and put it into neutral, squeeze that, it'll activate it, and then the bike will just hold it. So you can kind of relax or rest your hands and your feet. So like now, the road's pretty straight, but if I pull the front brake quite hard, there you go. See the H in the circle? That means hill hold control is on, so the bike brakes are applied. Put it into first, go to pull away, and the bike releases the brakes. With the TE, you're also going to get these hand guards. As standard, you get the SOS button, so if you do drop the bike or come off, it will send a emergency signal to someone. You can add on from factory heated seats for the rider and passenger. I'm not sure if it's a optional extra, but you can also add on what's called cruise lights or cruising lights, where the indicators, as in the orange lights in them, stay on at a dimmed, say 20%, just so there's extra lights on the front of the bike. Makes the bike look a little bit wider, hopefully some more chance of being seen. Let's pull over, have a little walk around this bike. This will do nicely. Here we go then. Like I said, this is the GS Trophy model. Tell me what you think of the colour scheme. I quite like it. I do like the Rally, which is like the BMW's red, white and blue as well. Have a look at some of the extra features that comes on this bike. We've got BMW calipers with 305mm discs either side. Suspension and brakes on this are really good. I've had no issues so far, and to be honest I don't think I will. Adjustable windscreen using the dial on the right hand side, just like the GSA. Not quite sure why it's on the left, so you just lean forward with your left hand, but all you're going to do is you just twist it and then it will raise it or drop it accordingly. On the GS you get the pannier mounting system on the side, so there is no extra bracketing for it. They're just clip-ons, grab rails, and then the grab rail integrates as the back box rack, so no need to change that. Obviously shaft driven, so no chain maintenance required. Side stand and centre stand, so especially over those winter months, if you're just putting the bike away, put it on the centre stand and then you're not going to get any dead spots in your tyres. Under the seat, under here, there is also another DIN charger, so if you want to put another charger there so the passenger can have something to charge their phone. We've got a seat height of 840 to 860mm, so not only can you use the electronic suspension on this to raise and lower the seat height, but also underneath the seat you are going to have two adjustments, one at the front and one at the rear, to change the height as well. You can get a lowered option that will drop it from 840 to 860 down to 800 to 820. Quick sound test then. As stock bikes go, I think it sounds pretty good. You can get the Acrocam for this and it just opens it up that little bit extra. Enough talking, let's start riding this thing again and I'll give you my final thoughts and opinions. The perks of having a bike like this adventure bike, something that can do on-road and off-road, means you can come to random places like this that you wouldn't do on your normal road bike. I'm 6'1" and the seat height for the GS is 850 to 870. And as I discussed, can be adjusted slightly with the electronic suspension, but you can get the low suspension kit which will drop it to 800 to 820. Don't forget you can also take off the seat, and then there's further adjustments at the front part of the seat and the rear part of the seat that you can then adjust there. That's where the 850 to 870 comes in. Obviously riding in places like this, the bike isn't light, 249 kilos. Ergonomics then, whilst I'm stood up, the handlebars are at a nice distance. I'm not bent over, I'm fully straight stood up now and I'm easily reaching the handlebars. If you wanted, you can get some risers, so if you're doing more of this kind of off-road stuff, you'll be able to have a little bit more comfort. When I'm stood up and looking down, the GPS bracket does get in the way of the TFT screen. But to be honest, when you're off-road, you're not too worried about the speed you're going. You ride as fast as the track you're on permits. But this bike is definitely capable of doing pretty much anything the UK can throw at it. Continue on the ergonomics whilst I'm sat down. The pegs are in a nice comfortable position, kind of in between my hips and my knees. So there's not a lot of pressure on my knees, which is good for anything long distance. Top half, yeah, you are set up quite upright, but it is comfortable. The handlebars are a nice distance. Windscreen in the lowest position, kind of top of the brow is where it's meeting. Let's raise it all the way up. 30 miles an hour, it's kind of right at the top of my helmet, potentially even just above it. I've got the standard GSA screen and that thing is worse than the GS in my opinion. So GS screen is better than the GSA screen, even though the GSA is bigger. I tend to complain a lot about bike seats, but the GS seat, it's really comfortable, it's really squidgy, you can feel the softness in it. You can do miles without feeling any discomfort. Even with 249 kilos, this thing just flips around, flicks side to side. That big low engine sticking out the sides really helps keep that centre of gravity nice and low. You do notice some vibrations coming through the pegs. Just want to note that the pegs are metal, so very off-road orientated to give you more grip, but you can buy rubber inserts, which I have personally done for the GS. It just softens the vibrations a little bit, because it is something you do notice. Because of the low centre of gravity, the low speed handling of this is really good. You don't feel the weight, it's not top heavy. Yeah, we've got big wide handlebars, so that is something you're going to have to pay attention to, especially if you're filtering. But this bike is really easy to ride. It's just a joy to ride. The question I asked myself this morning when I was going to jump on this bike was, did I make a mistake buying the GSA over this GS? I can honestly say no, I didn't. Jumping from the GSA onto this, apart from having a wider tank down the front, and when you look at it, bigger stance, there's not a whole lot difference between the GS and the GSA. Me personally, I like having 300 plus miles to a tank, because that means I can use my bike as a workhorse and just kind of forget about the fuel. Unlike the Aprilia Toyota I had, where I was filling that up every single time I went out. Sometimes I was filling it up twice. Some people don't like the look of the GSA and they say it's too big. So if you're going to look at this GS or the GSA, it's down to you. It's down to whether you like the big, aggressive, wide stance of the GSA or the slightly slender look of the GS. They both handle pretty much exactly the same, although there is a couple of kilos extra on the GSA. It's negligible. It's one of the big things with the GSA, and with that extra weight, you can't feel it. Like, this thing flicks just the same as the other GSA. Honestly, so no matter whether you get the GS or the GSA, you are not going to be disappointed with this bike. I'm still loving my bike, and I'm loving this bike as well. If you've made it this far in the video, I know you've enjoyed it, so why don't you do us a favour at DSR and subscribe to the channel. We've got review bikes coming weekly, and we've got series that we've got planned for 2023. Once you've subscribed, before you disappear, drop a comment below. Would you go for the GS or the GSA? Let's have it out, YouTube. Until the next one, ride safe.